What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Woodward Bets back in the house Wednesday night, talking everything in the sports world. I am Beer, joined by my boy Scotty G. How we doing, brother? I see you rocking the throwback jersey there. So we dusted that one off from years ago. I mean, you had that 91 Lions shirt. This one's got to be in the same kind of date range. So you really dug back in that closet here once again.
Actually, when the Super Bowl was here in Detroit, I thought long and hard, what am I going to wear to the Super Bowl? And I figured this would be the only chance that Barry Sanders' jersey would be at the Super Bowl in my lifetime. So I chose to wear the jersey. I was kind of hoping I'd run into him and have him sign it for me, but didn't quite work out. So yeah, whatever the astronomical amount I paid for this jersey here back then, it's still probably a lot of money now. But yeah, it's from that time I won the Super Bowl. But yeah, hey, you got to bust out the Barry Sanders. I mean, that guy was probably one of the most fun NFL players that I've ever seen play. I mean, he's just exciting. It was awesome.
He was fantastic. So maybe I'll have to surprise you one day. Speaking of this topic, so I'll save that. It'll be a little surprise for you. But looks like you decorated for Christmas too. We got a couple Santa hats up there, and the comment on the board. We always got to talk about it. To the beach. So explain to the people, because there ain't no beach around here right now that anyone is going to. Snow, ice, cold. Supposed to rain, and it's been raining. So to the beach. What are we talking about here?
Man, Chris, my first of all, we decorated the house, busted out all the Christmas stuff, and the stuff starts flying out, and the all the girls in the house here say, "Oh, you got to have some cute stuff for Christmas in your background." Okay. So, there they are. They're hanging up. Probably eventually, I wouldn't doubt if there's some other stuff added. Who knows what'll happen with that, Chris? We just go with the flow. We just try to least resistance is, the best way. But the to the beach, one of my very best friends won a DKC. We brought it up here earlier in the week, and man, that DraftKings seed is just one of the pinnacles in all of daily fantasy sports. I mean, there's 12.5 million in the tournament. It's down in Miami, so he is one of 200 there. I actually have a couple other friends that like you mentioned, we meet people along the way and have a good time with a lot of these guys, and I happen to know a few other people that are going. So just excited. I'm going to go down there with my buddy as his plus one, go have some fun and root them on. We got to root on our Michigan boys. So anybody else from Michigan that's going, reach out to us at Woodward Bets. Make sure we hook up when we're out there, because I'd like to talk to you to see how much fun you're having and how you end up doing in the tournament and everything else. So we're definitely going to want to talk to you guys. But Chris, maybe we'll get him on here one day. His name's Scott as well, so maybe we'll get him on here one day and let him talk about it. He's been playing DFS for quite some time, and I don't want to say he's my guy I brought in under my wing, but that's probably what he'll end up saying. I mean, he and I have been playing from the beginning of time, so for when you see one of your buddies get into something that you enjoy, and then he just latched onto it. He really likes playing baseball and football, and now he's a hockey guy. He really likes hockey, so. I like, and he loves golf too, but, to see him get a seat, man, it was just as satisfying as for me to get one. I mean, of course, I'd want one, but if nobody else can have one, you can't have one, man, I'll tell you, I mean, it couldn't get any better. So excited to go down to Miami, especially with this cold-ass weather we have. So these old bones don't like that cold weather there, Chris, and I'll tell you what, speaking of old bones there, buddy, we know the Woodward Sports Network, had their holiday party last night, bud, that unfortunately we had some other commitments. We couldn't make it. But Braylon and Ryan were really happy about that Foaling championship they won. And I let them know, you're lucky that Beerman and I weren't in the house, because we might have had to give you a spanking. But everybody's right arm throwing that football today, buddy. I'm telling you, I bet you it's hurting.
Is it the football or the raking of the leaves? I mean, there's just all kinds of excuses floating around these days. But Maybe we have. Here's what we do. Maybe we challenge them boys to a little side match and record some footage and play it on the show there. So we may have to set that up here at some point, maybe after the holidays when things calm down a little bit. But so there it is. We're issuing the challenge right now. So we were not able to participate, but I've seen you in action.
You'll be on their show tomorrow.
There you go. I'm gonna
Yeah,
lay down the
you
gauntlet
dropped the
on my
bomb.
weekly appearance. There we go. That's what we're
336.
gonna do. Yes.
Yeah.
So tune in, and I am going to throw down the gauntlet and see how they react. I know Braylon's a competitor. We'll see if
Yep.
Ryan's ready for the smoke or not. So make sure you guys are tuning into that. Join that show every Thursday afternoon at 3:35. Do a quick segment with those guys. But love that show. If you guys are not tuning in, you're missing a lot. Very entertaining. Our boy Maz in there as well. So you can find that every afternoon here on the network 2 to 4. So follow them at Woodward Sports. The schedule is always there. And then, of course, at Woodward Bets. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing to those channels. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. We greatly appreciate all the support. So, Scott, let's talk some college sports before we get into things. Plan for today, it's Wednesday. That means we're going to cover some KMAs as always, and we're going to take our initial look at the NFL slate with some plays we like, kind of give an overview of the games, see if the spreads, totals have moved any. And then, again, we come back on Sunday, tie a nice tidy bow on everything at our live show at 9 a.m. So, but this is always a fun exercise to just kind of dig in, see what our initial thoughts are. And I don't know about you, but usually your first instinct is the right instinct, and then you start thinking too much and overthinking and should I do this? And you're tinkering. I found that usually the first lineup I make, the first rendition, the first thing I come up with is generally pretty close to my best lineup on the week. So that's why we wanted to start to do this earlier and give you the initial thoughts before we've dug into it for too long. But that's the Sunday show. But let's talk some college sports here real quick. Michigan, obviously, as expected, lands in the top 4 of the college football playoff, sitting at number 2. A big game with Iowa here this week in the Big Ten Championship. 10.5-point favorites here, Scott. So we talked about it yesterday. If you missed the show yesterday, Dennis Fithian joined us. So great breakdown here of the game, some Heisman bets you may want to make. So if you missed that, beauty of our show, they're on demand. So go and check that out. But but thoughts here, Scott, on Michigan. Do you see Iowa being a roadblock here at all? Again, we talked a lot about it yesterday. Iowa's defense, definitely legit, definitely a team that can slow this offense down. Can they do enough offensively to keep up with Michigan is a concern. So do you see any potential hiccups here on Michigan's road to a potential national championship?
I mean, I would hope not. I think they're in pretty good spot. As you mentioned, that offense is not very good. They're 123 in total college football, total yards. They're like 110 passing yards, 108 rushing yards. They're obviously not very good offensively, but like you mentioned, I mean, they're 13th in total yards defensively. Michigan's 20th, so they rank better than they do. And then passing yards, they're 38th. Michigan is 68th. So obviously that defense is playing pretty well, but I just got to believe that Michigan is going to ride that high, and they should be able to beat Iowa here. I don't see any issues. If they do lose, I mean, it would be a terrible disappointment and total failure. But I do think they got the right mind frame, and they understand, Chris, what's at stake here. They win, they're literally going to the college playoff, and I believe they're either going to be the 1 or the 2 seed, depending on what goes on in that Alabama and Georgia game.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one too. That spread is kind of, there's something off with that spread. Georgia, Alabama. I mean, if you looked at it and you saw how dominant Georgia has been this season, you would probably expect that thing to be double digits. I know it's Alabama, so that thing hovering around 6 is a little weird. And I think you're going to see the majority of the public on Georgia. So I haven't locked anything in yet, but that one smells a little fishy. So we'll talk about that as we get closer to Saturday. But it looks like a great day of college football, so we will cover it on our Saturday morning show. Scott, let's talk some college hoops here, starting to really heat up. We had some great games last night. I mean, that Indiana-Syracuse game, a double overtime, crazy game. We had Ohio State to look like they were dead and buried against number 1 Duke. They go on a hell of a run, end up upsetting the Blue Devils in Ohio State. So thoughts here on some of the college basketball action that we saw last night. Pretty exciting games.
Yeah, the Big Ten ACC Challenge is going on, so we always get those decent matches. I think Michigan's got North Carolina today, which should be interesting. I was trying to fizz through here. There's so many stinking games.
Yeah, they got North Carolina tonight.
Yeah,
yep,
9:15.
And Michigan State hosts Louisville tonight at 7:15.
Yeah, so I mean, I like this time of year, but Chris, it's so it's tough as us, that are diving into all these different sports. We're looking at NBA, we're looking at football, of course, and then here we just got out of baseball, and then all of a sudden your mindset is all right, give me a little break here. Football is obviously the one time a week, but when college basketball starts getting around that college, around the conference time, that's when I really like to start to hone in. So yeah, we're going to start getting a little bit more in tune with college basketball. Maybe we can get us a couple college basketball experts out there. So hey, if you think you're a college basketball expert and think you can help us out here, let us know. Maybe we'll have an interest in bringing you on the show. But yeah, Chris, looking forward to college basketball. I mean, there's nothing like it in March Madness. So hopefully,
best sporting event there is.
No, I
No
agree.
doubt.
I mean, I hope we can get to go down and hang out at the casino that Thursday and Friday and watch the opening two games and maybe sit at a sports book and have some fun, because there's nothing like that. Then it's usually around St. Patrick's Day, so it's like double whammy. It's like, oh boy, But yeah, looking forward to that. But I mean, hey, the Big Ten's really good in basketball, so it was nice to see. I hate to say it, but I was happy for Ohio State beating Duke. It's always fun to see Duke lose.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So it's what's the lesser of two evils? We have a lot of us are not fans of Ohio State, and that's just because they've been so damn good. That's really what you boil it down to. It's obviously a rivalry for Michigan, so that it adds to the disdain. But anytime number one goes down, always good to see. So Michigan, it's been a kind of an up and down so far. They haven't looked great so far. It's kind of the early season jitters. Playing North Carolina tonight, both teams sitting at 4-2, so that one should be competitive. Same with Michigan State, off to a 5-2 start, bringing in 5-1 Louisville tonight. So should be a nice, fun night of college hoops. But we also have NBA tonight, so we'll get to that here shortly. Best bets were the Pistons kind of rolled over like I thought they would last night, but we'll bounce back here tonight on those best bets. But Scott, why don't you introduce? We got a new segment coming up on Friday. We're going to give a shot, and a lot of people that enjoy sports, betting, fantasy, there's something else that they enjoy. But you and I are on kind of opposite ends of this spectrum, so we want to see if we can bring our worlds together here. So why don't you let the people know, starting this Friday, what we're going to be rolling out here during the show, live on the show, what we're going to be adding here to Woodward Bets.
Yeah, we figure we might as well have some fun. So we're going to have some brews with beer. So we're going to have a suggestion. I've known Chris for a while, and if you go over his house and you open up his fridge in the garage, he's got literally, I'm not joking, 70 different kinds of beers in his refrigerator. I mean, the man has more beers than most bars have. I mean, it's impressive. So, when I reach in there and I grab a Corona, I get a boo, I get some kind of, something like that. So I've always kind of chuckled. So, hey, we'll have some brews and beers with brews with beer. What we'll do, we'll drink some beer while we do our show, and I'll try them out. So those of you who really don't like all those hoppy and all those crazy type beers, and maybe you're not quite ready to try them, we'll do that for you. I'll try them if I like them. Maybe you would want to go out and try. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of recommendations you have, but yeah, we'll start with some local breweries. We'll change it up every week, and we'll give our opinions of what we think.
Yep. So the beer fridge in the garage, you're right. I try to keep that thing stocked. I try to keep it, something for everybody. It becomes a community fridge. People know now. Anything in there is fair game. I mean, there's some pricier beers in there and things I've been sitting on a while. But if it's in that fridge, you reach in there, you grab whatever the hell you want. So we're gonna try to expand Scott's horizons here. We'll see. Scott's a Modelo, Corona. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not bashing that at all. I was that guy for a long time and finally started to try some things. And there's stuff you like, stuff you don't like. So we thought it would add a nice little flavor here to the show. So we'll be doing this every Friday. We're going to try to highlight some local breweries. So if you're a local brewer out there, you want some exposure here on the show, please feel free to reach out. And we're not gonna let you know who the first one is, the debut show, but an up-and-coming brewery, I'll say that, in the state of Michigan that's really been crushing it here over the last couple of years. So one of my favorite beers will be highlighted on this show. So find out who we're talking about. You're going to have to come back and join us on Friday's show for that. So looking forward to that. We'll see if we can get Scott into some different beers here. But Scott, it's Wednesday. Let's
I'm
knock out
giggling
our
at your picture. Oh,
Oh,
no, you cut you off there. I was giggling at your picture there. You slick out the shades there and stuff. Looks like you're out in the slope with the snow bunnies. That's what
Oh
I
yeah,
was giggling
that's right on the. So every year we do a nice little ski trip with some friends of ours, and the first year we rented a house off the hill, and we got kids, they got kids, so that turns into kids lugging skis and boots. Are you a skier? Do you hit the
Yep. Yeah, I
slopes?
grew up on the
So
slopes. My mom was a
it's
ski instructor. Yep.
so it's a lot of gear and it's a lot for them to carry. Dad, can you carry this? Can you carry it? And there's poles going everywhere and it's just shit everywhere. So we decided the next year we ran a ski in, ski out. So we're right on the side of the hill. Anytime you want to go skiing, you duck out. Who wants to go? If you don't want to go, you just chill at the house. You come back in. It's a nice, easy procedure. So that photo right there on the side of the mountain. I mean, we kind of chill out there when we're not skiing. We'll sit on the side of the slope and have some of these beers we're talking about here, and just watch a lot of entertainment. There's the hills there, the jumps, so you'll see a lot of people, unfortunately taking a spill, and a lot of the new skiers crashing. The little ski school comes by, so you get to see the little kids skiing. So it's always a good time. But that picture, I'm pretty sure.
Once. Yeah, you
What's
don't
that?
hit them jumps, Chris. You don't hit them jumps when
Oh,
you get older. You can't
no.
do that. I learned that lesson as I got in my early 30s, hit that one of them jumps and tried to do the with the poles, with flying up and tucking your knees. No, that wasn't working, my friend. I went busting over assholes, elbows, big thing of snow, and I think I ended up down there in the ski patrol room getting patched up. But hey, you learned that lesson real fast, buddy.
Oh yeah, I'm too damn big to be leaving the ground, so I know my limitations. Like if I can stay upright, good. And I got back into it a few years ago, so the first year back, a little rough, and the last few years getting a little better, a little more adventurous. But I will stay away from the jumps. We'll leave them to the experts. But yeah, that is a live pick from the side of the mountain there. So if you're a skier, let us know. You got any skiing tips? You can help a brother out. Please pass that along. But looking forward to this new segment here on Friday. But Scott, it's KMA time. Who are you sending the KMA out to this week? You always have a few here that you're not happy with. So again, this is our segment, our sounding board. Having fun with it, of course. Our public service announcement. Don't be the guy reaching out to these players, or you see some of these threats to guys' families. Like, let's just dial it back a little bit. So we're going to have some fun here, Scott. Who is in your KMA bag here for this week?
Well, I think I can speak for a few people who are sitting there on Monday night hoping for a couple points to get a victory from DK Metcalf. Where the hell did you go, man? Where are you at? Nobody can find you. Where are you at, buddy? Time to come back. But anyway,
that's a big dude, man. That's a big guy. For him to go missing, it's quite the circumstance.
Man, I don't know if that hair dye got through to that head or something. I mean, he's missing out. I don't know what's happening there. And then the other one, Chris, the one that I want to really poke fun at is Ryan Day and that 100-point comment. You can kiss my ass for that, too. There ain't no way you're ever putting 100 points up on anybody. If you wanted to do it, you should have done it against the Sparties in the first place. But that wasn't obviously what you wanted to do. So stop the nonsense. And you know what, Chris? Let's talk about Ryan Day. If he loses in the next 1 or 2 games to Michigan, his ass is on the hot seat. He might be gone. So talk about putting your foot in your mouth. So he can definitely KMA for me too. But yeah, 42-27, buddy.
Yeah, the old 100 points. Like, take it easy there. So Harbaugh, much needed win, and you're not wrong. I mean, it probably doesn't take much to be on the hot seat at Ohio State. I know he's got some NFL aspirations, so maybe he takes over for your boy Uncle Herbs there in Jacksonville, and Urban rides in and takes the Notre Dame or USC job. We'll see. But let's talk some quick NBA before we get into the NFL. NFL is going to be the meat of the show here, so this will be very quick. We'll do some best bets at the end of the show, Scott. Big slate of games here tonight. A lot of guys injured, questionable. So we'll run through some of the names here to keep an eye on. Miami, you're going to be dealing with some questionable tags for Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler. Miles Turner missed that last game. We'll see if he's back with an illness. Kristaps Porzingis dealing with an ankle injury. We got Cole Anthony. Sounds like he's going to be back for Orlando, so good news there. Jaylen Brown kind of been out of that lineup a bunch, so we'll see if he's back. Another Orlando guard, Jalen Suggs, going to be out a while, the star rookie, so we're not going to see him for a few weeks. Some guys we know are out, Mason Plumlee, Jalen Green, Brooke Lopez, and then we'll keep an eye on Anthony Edwards with Minnesota, the star youngster, dealing with some sickness as well. So, Scott, let's give the people a couple plays here that we're looking at. Big slate of games in the NBA again. If you're waiting for best bets, that's always at the end of the show. So we'll get you some winners there. But DFS for tonight, Scott, who are you looking at?
I mean, just kind of looking around at some of these optimizers here. I mean, that Chamizi Mutu is pretty cheap on DraftKings. He's only 3,800. Don't even know if I came close to pronouncing that right. But that's the best thing, the best that we're going to do. But, hey, I mean, he's been pretty close to in the mid-30s there a few times. He's only 3,800, so he's a guy that you could look at over there. But, I mean, Paul George, I mean, is he a guy that you're interested in? He's 8,600. He's been up and down. It looks like, though, a few of the times he sat out, it's just because they have been blowing teams out. And the same thing with Giannis, Chris. I mean, you're paying 11-2. I mean, how many minutes are you going to get out of Giannis? They've been blowing out teams. And then he ends up sitting the fourth quarter for you. I don't even think Giannis has finished a game in a while, actually. But and then you got some guys there from the Pacers, Chris LeVert, maybe a Malcolm Brogdon you could look at. Bobby Portis is another one. But, Chris, it just seems like it's tough. You know, in NBA, when the team's blowing them out, all of a sudden they're sitting in the fourth quarter, and you're paying 11-2 for Giannis, and he's not getting you any more points. Man, that could just kill you real quick. So, that's always a fear of mine when I pay up for some of these guys that are in a blowout spot.
Yeah, Bucks 9-point favorites here tonight. I mean, they are in a good spot against Charlotte. They have a very high projected total. In fact, highest on the slate, I believe, at almost 120. So that's definitely a team, even if it's not Giannis, you could save some money on guys like Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton are great options as well. You mentioned Me Too. We'll just call him Me Too, Medu. I'm not sure what it is. So with all this crypto and meta talk lately, we'll just call him Medu, I guess. But he's a good value, like you mentioned, on both sites out there. A high end, it's always a debate. Do you want to pay Giannis? You mentioned the blowout concerns. Jokic playing at an incredibly high level. He gets a matchup with an interior in Orlando. I don't think it's going to be able to handle him. You got Mo Bamba down there playing some good ball, but Jokic just playing at such a high level. Indiana, like you mentioned, some good value there. You mentioned Paul George. I don't mind him. Reggie Jackson, former Piston, playing some good ball here as well. Anytime I see Sacramento on the schedule, Scott, it always says track meet. I want some exposure to those guys. So those are some of the higher end mid-range guys, some value plays for you tonight. Davion Mitchell with Sacramento starting to play well, the star rookie out of Baylor. Chris Duarte, another rookie with Indiana, playing well. He's pretty cheap. And then Cam Reddish, we'll keep an eye on him. He's questionable as of now, but another guy I think is in a good spot on the cheap. So we'll come back, talk some NBA bets at the end of the show here for this 9-game slate. But let's transition, Scott, into football here, start to get into some things here. Let's talk some waivers. We talked a lot about most of these guys yesterday. So some of the most acquired names here, according to our friends over at RTS Sports, Jamal Williams, RT Sports, I should say. Jamal Williams, number 1, Alexander Madison 2, Hilliard, Breida, Boston Scott, Chuba Hubbard. So 6 running backs topping the list here, Scott. I don't think any surprise with some of the injuries we're dealing with to Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift. Buffalo is kind of a changing of the guard there with Breida getting more love. Philly, Miles Sanders dealing with an injury. Taysom Hill popping at number 7. He's a guy that I definitely have added in a few spots. The upside, very tantalizing with Taysom Hill in that Saints offense. So not great for the rest of those guys in that offense, the pass catchers, even Alvin Kamara. But I love Hill's upside in fantasy. So if he's out there, you're looking for a quarterback upgrade or you got a guy on bye, he should be a priority for you. Evan McPherson, kicker edition. Kendrick Bourne been playing some good ball for New England, and Jack Doyle at the tight end position. So nothing overly surprising on this list. I'm a little surprised Alexander Madison isn't the number 1. Is about the only thing I could say about this list, but all pretty much makes sense here with a bunch of running backs being added this week with some of those injuries we talked about.
Yeah, Chris, I would assume the reason why Alexander isn't number one, he's probably on more teams
Yeah.
than Williams was on to start the week. So I think that's probably the case with Chuba Hubbard, why he's probably down there at 6. But I mean, Jamal Williams is interesting. It looks like Swift may not be able to go this week. So if he's going to be the lone back, I would like Jamal Williams. And then Breida too is interesting too. I mean, like we mentioned yesterday, Moss was he was a healthy scratch. So Breida got those carries there. I mean, if you're going to get a guy in a offense like Buffalo, and you're going to get that running back, I mean, at that point, he definitely has a chance just to fall in the end zone. So I don't mind Matt Breida if he's going to take that job. I mean, that's a guy there that definitely could help you in your playoff run here in season long.
Yeah, I like adding him for depth. The problem is counting on a Buffalo running back. They're never going to just let it be one guy. Even with Moss inactive, like you said, yeah, it adds to the appeal. I've certainly added Breida in some leagues, but you still got Devin Singletary lingering as well. Not only that, you got Josh Allen, who we know is going to run the ball, especially when they get close to the goal line. So not against the Breida ad if you need some depth. I just counting on him to be even an RB2 week in, week out. I think it's going to be a little bit dicey. So let's look at some of the most dropped guys. A headline by your boy, Scott. Christian McCaffrey, going to be out for the rest of the year, along with Dan Arnold, who will also miss the rest of the season. I hear you back there. Cam Newton, has a good game, then comes out and kind of shows his true colors in that game against Miami. I mean, he was horrific in that game, and had a rushing touchdown, but I think he was like 5 for 21 or something in that game. So no surprise he's on this list. Jeff Wilson was fun while we knew you, Jeff, but Elijah Mitchell back. He is the man there. Randy Bullock on bye this week. Dearness Johnson, unfortunately, a guy that we really like, but Kareem Hunt back in the mix there for the Cleveland Browns. Ty Johnson, a guy we thought could have some usage, but some other backs getting some love there with the Jets. Tony Jones Jr. had some opportunity, didn't do much with it. Now sounds like Ingram and Kamara may be back for this game. Zane Gonzalez, another kicker drop, and the aforementioned Zach Moss, a healthy scratch last week. So anything surprising here on this list, Scott? I guess some of the running backs, maybe we're bailing a little bit early, especially on a Jeff Wilson. Elijah Mitchell's been great when healthy, but not a guy you can really count on to stay healthy. Even a Dearness Johnson, I know it can be tough to utilize a roster spot on guys like this, but those two kind of stood out as guys that were a little bit surprising to see on the release list this week.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope, like I said, with them CMC owners, if hopefully you traded them, if you traded them, man, you got to be real happy with that decision. But yeah, like I said, Chris, I mean, with all these injuries, that's pretty much what dominates this side of the list, usually from week to week. But yeah, just pay attention to your waiver wire, man, because some of these guys are only relevant for a couple of weeks, but they can definitely help you out. But just goes to show you every week, there's a handful of guys that are out there. Here we're going into playoff time, and there's literally 3 or 4 guys out there on this waiver wire this week that definitely could help you out moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. So let's jump into the main slate of games here. So we'll leave Thursday night alone. We will cover that in depth tomorrow on the show from all angles. Best bets. We'll see if there's some props we like, maybe some first touchdowns. Those have been good to us. And, of course, best bets for that Thursday night football game, Dallas and New Orleans. But today we're going to focus on the main slate of games in DFS, look at some plays, look at some injuries, and, of course, take a look at the spreads and totals. So let's jump in, Scott. We got Giants and Miami leading us off here in the first game. This thing opened up Miami minus 2.5. I'm already seeing some 5s out there at FanDuel and points bets. There's some 4s as well. So this one kind of all over the board. And this one driven by Daniel Jones being hurt, not looking like he's going to give it a go, which means Mr. Neck, Mike Glennon, guys, longest neck I've ever seen outside of a giraffe, stepping in at quarterback here for the New York Giants. So that has led to a surge here in bets on Miami. So are you following the crowd here on this one? Do you believe in Mike Glennon? This total dropping as well. It's sitting at 40.5 is about the lowest I can find. So kind of an ugly game, Scott. What are we doing in this one? Even at Miami backfield, Gaskin was getting a lot of work. Now we see Phillip Lindsay kind of carving into that. So it kind of dings the upside a little bit in Gaskin. So not a ton here that I'm liking out of this game early on in the week.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton here as far as, I mean, the Giants' weakness is against wide receivers, and obviously with Danny Dimes going to be out, I mean, that kind of takes me off guys like Galladay, maybe Slayton. I just don't see the upside there. I don't mind maybe plugging him in if you're playing in a season long, but as far as DFS goes, I don't see the upside. And you talk about Miami and Gaskins, he hasn't broken 100 yards this season. He's only totaled one touchdown since week 12, and then he notched two scores on his 16 when he had two scores, 16 yards, or 49 yards. So for me, I mean, the only guy, Chris, that you can really look at playing that you almost got to think about every week is Jalen Waddle. I mean, that dude has just been an absolute stud. I spent a lot of times researching and reviewing lineups that were winners and top of tournaments. I mean, I keep seeing Jalen Waddle's name time in and time again, week after week. It just seems like he's always on these teams that are winning. So, Chris, I think Jalen Waddle's a guy. I mean, even if he isn't in the limelight, you almost just got to consider him just because he seems to be a guy we got. I mean, he should be pretty much almost be rookie of the year. I'm thinking. I think he's got a chance to be rookie of the year.
Yeah, I mean he's certainly been up and down, but been productive lately. And anytime Tua's in the lineup, but they just have that natural connection going back to Alabama. They also have the injuries there. You know, Devontae Parker has been out. Will Fuller's been MIA like he always is. Even Mike Gesicki's role has kind of shrunken down here over the last few weeks. So Waddle's really become that alpha there and has that big playability. And he's a smaller kind of guy, but he can make some contested catches. So I really like what I've seen out of him so far. So I don't disagree with that. Nice mid-range play against this Giants secondary. As far as bets here, Scott, I'm pretty much hands-off on this one. In fact, I'd probably lean Miami if I'm going anywhere. But if I can get in at the 4, I like it better than the 5. Their defense has been playing a lot better. I am not a believer in Mike Glennon. We've seen this movie before. This guy is not good, even with the weapons around him. He should be set up for success, but Saquon has not looked great. You know, they're still kind of babying him back in the lineup. Had that one big run. Outside of that, he didn't do a whole lot. Galladay's been kind of a disappearing act this season. So if anything, I'm probably backing the Dolphins here, but mostly a stay away game for me.
Yeah, I mean, if with Glennon playing, I mean, the Giants can't score with Danny Dimes, so I don't know how they're going to score with Glennon playing. So I'd probably look at like an underplay, maybe an under in like a first half even here, and just hope that you don't get a bunch of turnovers that gives teams short fields. But if they can at least move the ball up and down and punt, I think the under would be a decent play. Like I said, just try to avoid those turnovers there.
All right, next game on the docket, we got Indianapolis traveling to take on the Texans. This spread is also on the move. Opened up Indy -7.5. So as of right now, seeing some 8.5, some 9s, even some 9.5s on this one. So a lot of bets coming in on the Colts here. Obviously, Scott, a big mismatch here. Jonathan Taylor in a great spot. You could go to the passing game here as well. Houston, it's the same story every week. Do you want to play Brandon Cooks or not? You know, Tyrod, I tried to make that work last week. He did all right, but, the ceiling kind of capped with this offense. So all aboard the Colts here is Jonathan Taylor, one of the guys to pay up for that price. Is certainly getting up there. And Houston not been terrible against running backs. I mean, they're not great, but over the last 4 weeks, they're out middle of the pack against running backs. So is Taylor a guy that you want to pay up for here this week against this Houston defense?
Yeah, I mean, you always got to consider him. He's the number one running back so far, surprisingly. We would have never probably guessed that when the season started. But the last time he played against me, he had 145 yards, 2 scores on just 14 carries. I mean, he's just these last 8 or 9 games. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. I mean, his last road game too, he had 5 touchdowns against the Bills. I think they're really going to lean on him here. I mean, I think it's a shoe-in for him to score a touchdown, Chris. I mean, I think it's just a matter of how many yards he get and does he get 2. I think he's going to be a top play in the slate. You're obviously going to have to pay up for him. But yeah, I think his floor is obviously the highest of anybody this week. Maybe one other guy that you might be able to look at, which we'll get to, but Taylor is just lined up here for a good spot. The game flow is there. They're 22 against the running back. Obviously, they're number 1. So yeah, Jonathan Taylor for me all day, every day. But the question is, can you afford him in your lineup? We're gonna have to find some value.
Yeah, no doubt. His touchdown prop will be probably one of the highest on this slate. I would have to guess minus 200 if I'm throwing a number out there on Jonathan Taylor. So can you afford him? Yes, I think there's some value. I do think there's some other running backs in just as good a spot that are a little bit cheaper that we'll get to. So are you riding with the public here, the Colts? Something on the total? Anything standing out betting-wise here?
Well, at this point, Chris, 78% of the money is coming in on the Colts. You know what? That just scares me at this point. The numbers went from 7.5 to 9. I mean, yeah, it's 7.5 or so. I think I feel better about it, but as it keeps creeping up, I think it worries me a little bit. I mean, if I was to look at anything here, I think maybe maybe a Colts like first half and maybe hope they get out to a big lead. You might be able to cut that number down to below a touchdown. I think maybe something like that I'd look at. But as far as a full game, I would just worry about them getting up and then getting like a late backdoor cover or something like that silly that would just frustrate you. But we know that Houston offense is terrible. So, yeah, I would lean the Colts, but it does scare me that everybody, all our neighbors, friends, brothers, and sisters are all going to bet on the Colts this week.
And we kind of missed the boat on it. We talk about this every single week. Early in the week, if you like the Colts, you could get them at 7.5. It makes a lot more sense than this thing approaching 10. So I don't really want to jump on now. I don't want to back the Texans in the spot. It's just really hard to get behind this team, even though they have had some performances. That win in Tennessee, I think headlines everything. I don't want to back them against this Colts team. Probably lean an under here, but another game I'm likely staying away from. So, Scott, next up, let's talk your Detroit Lions. This one sitting at -7. It hasn't moved a ton. Minnesota opened up 6.5. Pretty much 7 across the board, which is kind of where we thought this game would end up. Total solid 47.5 here. So you mentioned earlier in the show, Jamal Williams looks like he's going to be the lead back. Alexander Mattison on the other side. So I think that's going to be the storyline here, as a lot of people are going to be jamming in Alexander Mattison, even at an elevated price point. This guy's been so good when given opportunity. When Dalvin Cook is hurt, it's a great matchup. That being said, I like Mattison, but I think Justin Jefferson is going to go overlooked here with all the love for Mattison. Let's not forget about Justin Jefferson. So he's a guy I'm highlighting here. I do like Jamal Williams in the spot. Minnesota has not been great against the run. So I think there's a variety of plays that we can go here DFS-wise this week, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of play you look for. You're right. I think Madison's going to be really chalky, especially on DK. Actually, FanDuel did a pretty good job at pricing him up. He's priced up there pretty high. So I don't mind him on FanDuel. I mean, he had 100 yards last time they played. Cook was out too. So he already got the 100 yards against the Lions there. I mean, you can expect him maybe to get a handful of catches as well. But, yeah, you make that pivot. You go over there. We saw it last week with the Brady. And all of a sudden, you see Fournette fall in the end zone 4 times. And what happens? Everybody with Fournette was less than 5% owned. But Brady, Godwin, and Gronk were all 30, 40% owned. I think this is going to be a situation kind of similar here where Madison's going to be 30, 40%. And then you're going to look at Jefferson probably would be less than 10 or 10%. So I definitely like that. The Lions are 9th in giving up points against wide receivers. And I just got to believe that's just because normally teams know they can run down their throat. And generally the game script is not for a passing type situation. But, yeah, maybe even Jamal Williams. He's fairly cheap. You mentioned him if Swift's going to be out. So I don't mind Jamal Williams either on that side. But I can't really play any Lions. But as far as like any kind of bets here, the Lions have been hanging tough. I mean, they're pretty good against the spread. They're actually 6-4 against the spread, which is not too bad. Obviously, for their record, they're a better team to bet. Actually, they're 7-4 against the spread this year. So, man, I wish we could have the Lions play by the spread. We might be winning the division.
Yeah, they've been good against the number, no doubt. I don't mind backing them here once again with the 7 points. So I mentioned Jefferson has definitely been successful against this Lions team. They played back in week 5. 7 catches on 8 targets, 124 yards. You go back to the end of last season, had 9 for 133 against this team. So the track record is there, even if it's limited. And again, it's just a leverage play off of if Madison's going to be that popular. I don't mind Madison, no doubt. He's in a great spot. I'll have some, especially in a cash game format. I think he makes a lot of sense. But The pivot sometimes, like you mentioned with the Fournette example, that's the way to differentiate in tournaments. So it's not always trying to find that 0.2% guy that nobody's ever heard of. It's simple plays like this sometimes that just makes you a little bit different. Then you can still play some of the other chalk that's in a good spot. And that's how you end up at the top of these rankings. So I think Jefferson, a great case for that this week. I love Jamal Williams here as well, Scott. You worry about some of the other running backs getting work. We saw that one week. Swift did all the heavy lifting. Jefferson stealing a touchdown. The guy can't pronounce his last name, stealing a touchdown. So that's the concern. But Jamal Williams, cheap enough, can be involved in the passing game. And the beauty of a Detroit running back, Scott, as you know, no matter how the game goes, they're not going to be game scripted out. They could be down 28-0. They're still going to hand off. They're still going to throw to the running backs. A lot of teams, you get game scripted out. It can happen to Derrick Henry. It can happen to Jonathan Taylor. That's one of the benefits of these Lions running backs. So I think the Lions hang here. I'm going to go out on a limb here and take the Lions plus the 7. Probably not going to do the money line here. Minnesota playing some good ball, but I think we're both in lockstep here on the Lions plus 7. So let's move on to our next game, Philadelphia and the New York Jets. A story here. Jalen Hurts dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury. So a little bit of a concern with a guy like Hurts, Scott. We know loves to run the ball. So they don't sound like he's going to miss the game, but maybe he doesn't run as much. Maybe we lose some of that ceiling here. Spread-wise, we're sitting at 6.5 to 7 at most places in this one. So we just talked about a 7-point home underdog getting it done. Do we feel as strongly about the Jets being able to hang in this game with Philadelphia?
No, I think the Jets are just absolutely terrible. They're just terrible. But yeah, I can't ever put any money on the Jets. I mean, as far as maybe DFS, maybe like an Elijah Moore or Crowder every once in a while, you might be able to look at throwing in. But I mean, damn, this New York Jets defense has given up 21 touchdowns to running backs. It's almost like 2 a week. But man, it's like a sucker play this week, Chris. I got sucked in last week to playing Miles Sanders, and then every time I'm watching the game, we're seeing Scott run it in here and there. So very, very frustrating on that aspect. But I mean, the Jets just been so bad. I could see them both splitting, Sanders and Scott. So I'm kind of worried about upside there. I wish it was only one of them, but you know damn well what's going to happen. They're both have a little bit less than 100 yards. Maybe they'll both get one and split it and not have anything really great. But if you put them together, I think they would have one of the best weeks of all the running backs. But I just think it's going to get split. And, man, that just scares me here. But I do think you're going to see Sanders and Scott get quite a bit of ownership probably throughout the industry.
Yeah, it's sounding like Sanders is going to be able to play. They're still not committing to that, but treading in the right direction. So anyone that thought it was going to be Boston Scott season here, you got to pump the brakes on that. So I agree with you. It's one of those backfields I generally avoid. I stepped into the trap a little bit with Miles Sanders last week. Not overly owned in my lineups, but certainly was valuable, especially on FanDuel. I think he was down at 6,100. And this matchup, ideal. I'd love to plug one of these guys in, but I share some of the same concerns here. The other weapons on Philly, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, always intriguing here. Decent matchups with this Jets team as well. As far as the Jets go, you're right. It's ugly. Now you got another running back, Austin Walter, on the scene. So anything we thought coming out of Ty Johnson, Tevin Coleman, that seems to be zapped away. Crowder was a disappointment last week. So just tough to get excited about anything in this game. That being said, Scott, I have a couple leans here. Nothing as strong as my Lions pick there, but I do like the Jets with the points here early on in the week, especially if you can land a 7. And this one feels like an under. It just feels like an ugly game. I know Philadelphia's offense has put up some points in spots, but I'm liking the under in this one, just to be an ugly game played in the teens, basically.
Yeah, the Jets are 3-8 against the spread. Philly's 6-6 actually against the spread. But yeah, I just have a hard time. I agree with your under more so than I would look at a side here. I think I would definitely look at the under in this game here, just because, like you mentioned, both teams are struggling. But I think here you're going to be able to see the Eagles run the ball. So they have really no reason to pass. So I think that clock's going to be running. I don't think you'll have as many plays in this game. So yeah, I'm going to side with you on the under in this one.
All right, next up, we got Arizona traveling to Chicago. Cardinals opened up a -7, up to 7.5 in some spots, up to 8 in some spots. And I think that's based on the optimistic view that Kyler Murray should be back in that lineup against the Bears. Justin Fields back at practice for Chicago, but Andy Dalton taking first team reps. So we're back to where we started here. And Nagy's probably thinking, all right, Andy Dalton saved my job on Thanksgiving by us barely beating the Detroit Lions. As bad as that sounds, that's where we're at. So maybe he's a loyal guy and lets Dalton ride it out here. But either way, Scott, I don't really care who it is. I don't like the Bears in this spot against this Cardinals defense. If Kyler's back, I'm a little concerned. Is he 100%? Same concerns I have with Jalen Hurts. Is he going to be able to run around? Do we get DeAndre Hopkins back? If not, I think that could open up some value. Dennis talked about some of the guys yesterday, Rondale Moore, AJ Green, Christian Kirk. I think they could be intriguing mid-range plays. And James Conner, I think, is going to be in for another workload here. So he's probably my favorite here, along with the Arizona defense. Thoughts on this game, thoughts on the spread and the total here, Cardinals and Bears?
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are in stellar shape coming off their bye week. Now they had a little bit of rest up time for Kyler Murray and Hopkins and Edmonds. So just kind of looking forward here. I mean, Arizona's going to want to try to win. I think they're pretty comfortable over there in the NFC West, but I mean, they got a really good shot at getting that number 1 overall seed and getting that bye week. And you mentioned Connor. I mean, I really like that play. Right before the Bears played the Lions, they had given up touchdowns to running backs 6 weeks in a row, even though Swift did not get in the end zone last week, and that's because I had played him in a couple of my contests. But either way, I do like the Connor call. I think they're going to want to try to ease Kyler Murray into it, and if they can run the ball, I think that's what they're going to try to do in this matchup here. And like you mentioned, that defense is just so good, and Chicago's beat up on the defensive side of the ball too. They've sustained quite a few injuries. Obviously, we know Mac's out, but I do like the Cardinals there to just run it right down the Bears' throat.
Yeah, this is another one. I like the Cardinals. I don't know that I want to lay the 8 points here in this one. Maybe another under bet for me here on this 45.5. You worry about the Cardinals offense, kind of going nuts and carrying this thing over the total. But if I got to go right now, I'm going to probably go under on this number. All right, next game, Scott, we got the Chargers and the surging Cincinnati Bengals here. This one should be fun. Opened up, we got Cincinnati -2.5 to start. We're sitting about 3.5 at a lot of places now on this number. So Bengals, it's simple. Joe Mixon has been a monster, Scott. I mean, just so consistent, getting it done each and every week. Back to 3 weeks in a row, actually, with 2 touchdowns. 8 consecutive weeks of finding the end zone. Now gets another good matchup here. The Chargers have struggled all season long with the run. I don't think there's any reason Joe Mixon can't be the highest scoring running back this week, and you don't have to pay Jonathan Taylor prices for him. I absolutely love Joe Mixon in the spot once again this week.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's got 2 scores in his last 4 games. I mean, how do you not? I think this week is another week. I mean, we've already talked about a few times on the show how the Chargers just been getting blasted by the run. I mean, they're 27th in points given up. And I mean, now we got Mixon in here. I do like Mixon more than Jonathan Taylor. Actually, Mixon is at this point my favorite running back so far. That when I've looked at, I mean, the Chargers already given up 15 touchdowns to running back, but they don't seem to give a lot of the yardage. But the running backs there are definitely scoring touchdowns. I think the Broncos had about 130 or so last week, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, I think this game here could be a game where Cincinnati gets out and they get out front and they're just going to lean on Mixon. I could see Mixon getting mid-20 carries, get close to 100 yards and a couple scores here, and they're going to try to keep that dynamic offense and Herbert off the field best they can. I mean, that's probably their best way to win here. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a battle who can control this game, actually. If the Chargers get out and get out front, as we know, I mean, they got the weapons to do so. I think you'll see a little bit more of Chase, and I think Chase would be a little bit more relevant here in this game. I don't think it affects Mixon as much. I think you're still going to see Mixon get his carries. But I think if they can just run it with Mixon, it's going to take Chase out of the game and then limit some of these Chargers. But if the Chargers get out, this game could really quickly turn into a shootout.
Does this line smell fishy to you? I mean, as good as Cincinnati's been playing, we're hearing talk. They may be the best team in the AFC. They're barely a 3-point favorite here, which they're at home. The old rule is the home team gets 3 points. I don't know how viable that is anymore. We've seen, the home field advantage be not as an advantage as it's been in the past. So this one just seems a little weird with the Chargers coming off a dud, a game we thought they would roll the Denver Broncos, Cincinnati on a roll. Feels like a spot where the public's going to be all over Cincinnati, Scott. So it's taking me towards a Chargers play, as ugly as it seems, as not ideal as it seems. I think I'm leaning the Chargers here in this one, plus the 3 points.
I mean, hey, Pittsburgh, just came in to Cincinnati, and I mean, they got mollywopped down there in Cincinnati. I mean, that's a rivalry game for those boys anytime Pittsburgh comes into town. So, are we seeing another situation where they got hyped up for Pittsburgh and they stomped them, and now they got to get up again this week, and they got a pretty tough team to play. So, yeah, these are situations I like to look for especially when a team came off a high. They're definitely off a high, beating their division rival. So, like you said here, it does smell fishy, and we've seen it before here. I mean, it's not just the two teams involved; it's the actual situation that I like to look at, because we see it time and time again. The only thing that changes are team names, and it seems like the situation usually falls more times than not the same way.
And the Chargers are just, this is not data driven. This is not analytical, which we like to be here. But the Chargers are that team where you're expecting them to win. They let you down. It's kind of like the Eagles have that same feeling. And then when you count them out, okay, we're done with the Chargers. They shit the bed in Denver. They come in and shock you, and they whoop up on the Bengals. And then you're asking the same questions about the Bengals, who you thought were great. Now what happened? So I just think the dust settles at the end of the week. We're seeing 70% of the public grabbing this -3. That's taking me towards the Chargers play. So again, all our NFL best bets we'll hand out on our Sunday morning live stream at 9 a.m. So make sure you guys are getting up early and joining us for that. If you are grinding and betting the NFL, these are some of our early takes. So we'll see if that take stands as we get closer to Sunday. Scott, next game, Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Tampa Bay opened up at -10. That thing is on the move. We got some 10.5, some 11. It's out there as well. What do we do in this one? Last week looked like a tailor-made spot for the Brady double stack, Scott, with Godwin, with Evans, if you wanted to work Gronk in there. And then it's the running backs getting all the touchdowns. Do we want to go back to the passing game here? Do we see some recency bias where people jump on Leonard Fournette in this matchup? And then give me something on Atlanta. I mean, Cordero Patterson was back. He was great. He's about the only thing we can count on that Atlanta team. But the Tampa is so damn good against the run here. So what do we do with Tampa, and how do we run it back with this Atlanta team?
Yeah, I think this is pretty much a get right for Tom Brady in the passing game here. I think a lot of people may be off of him just because of what happened last week, but I still think Tom Brady is going to garner quite a bit of ownership this week. I mean, last time they played week 2, 276 yards and 5 touchdowns he had. So definitely knows how to he generally seems to beat Atlanta up all these years. But you're right with Fournette vulturing all those touchdowns. I played Tom Brady in most of my teams, Chris, and so aggravating when you're watching. I think Gronk got literally tackled at the 1 yard line or 2 yard line 2 or 3 times, and then they just handed Gronk. One of the times Brady tried to sneak it in himself and literally was short by like a half an inch to get in the end zone. So you're just sitting there watching. It was like gut punches all day to the gut. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't be afraid to go right back to Tom Brady here. I think they're going to try to get right, like I mentioned. And you mentioned Patterson. I mean, he is the only guy I think you can play at that point. Pitts has kind of fallen off the radar for me. He still hasn't had that game yet. I can't keep waiting. We're already too far into the season here for that huge explosive game that a lot of people are waiting for. But I mean, Matt Ryan did throw for 300-yard 2 scores the last time he saw the Bucs. I think they already know that they can't run, but they obviously throw to Patterson quite a bit. So I could see him dumping off to Patterson and maybe throwing to Gage and Zacchaeus. But I mean, I just don't think the upside's there. But I think the upside is there for Tom Brady and the boys.
Yeah, I'm with you. If people are going to be off of him, even at a slight discount. I want to go right back to the well. It's not sounding good on Antonio Brown. So when he's out, it makes life easy. When it's two of the three receivers, whatever combination it is, we'd love to see Gronk out too. He kind of throws a wrench into things, but those double stacks are certainly in play. You mentioned the 5 touchdown passes against them earlier this season. Last year, 2 games against Atlanta, 390 yards in 2, 399 yards in 4. So that one, I remember being a crazy game where Atlanta was really competitive and it turned into a shootout. Do we see that here in this one, Scott? I'm leaning an under on this one. I just don't see this Atlanta offense doing a whole lot. You mentioned the Matt Ryan stats, but I think Tampa Bay wins easy, and that's kind of the concern with Brady. Do we get a ceiling? Now, we know Tampa will not take their foot off the gas, but a slight concern here. So I'm leaning under on this number rather than backing the big spread here with Tampa. Any thoughts betting-wise early on in the week on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at how awful that Atlanta offense has been. I mean, it's just been terrible. But you look at some trends with these two being in the same division. I mean, the over is 5-0 in the last 5 meetings in Atlanta, and it's 10-1 in their last 11 meetings versus each other overall. But just keep that in mind there. But I do think the under is a decent play here. I'm not going to really follow those trends because, like you mentioned, I think that Atlanta offense is just terrible.
All right, let's move on to the afternoon games. We got 3 games, 3 or 4. Is it 3 or 4 game? We're going to have a 4-game afternoon, but let's start with Washington and the Las Vegas Raiders up next. This one hasn't really moved much. We're still sitting at Vegas -2.5 at most places here on this game. Storyline here, Darren Waller, star tight end for the Raiders, looking doubtful to play in this one. So another man down for this Vegas Raiders offense. And Scott, Washington, one of those teams, do we believe in Tyler Heinicke or not? I found some interesting stats kind of studying this game. This guy's been money on the road. All of his big performances have come away from Washington. So that's interesting. Terry McLaurin has also done very, very well when Heinicke has done well. So as far as the spot against the Raiders, I think it's a good one. They've struggled against the quarterback position. So if you need a value quarterback, I think Heinicke paired with McLaurin. Other side, I don't mind the run it back being a value tight end. If Waller's going to be out, Foster Moreau, only 2,700 on DraftKings. So this one, I think you can find some pieces, but those 3 being the guys I'm really looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Heineke. I mean, that guy has been really good, surprisingly, and I'm glad to see that kind of stuff. But one thing we got to keep in mind: McKissick took a knee to the head. He was carted off with a neck injury. So if McKissick isn't good to go, then we know Gibson's going to get a majority of these carries. So I definitely like Gibson in a situation like that. But Logan Thomas is really cheap, just coming off IR. So I think on FanDuel he was pretty cheap. I want to say he was like 5,100, 5,200. So I think that's an option for us. We saw him get quite a few targets last week. So somebody there that I'd be interested in. I mean, you mentioned the receivers here. The only thing, the receivers have not fared too well in Las Vegas. I don't know if it's because they're out partying or what. No, just actually kidding. But the Raiders have been pretty tough against wide receivers at home. But as far as the Raiders go, yeah, if Waller's out, that might lead us for the Moreau. Might be a cheap value tight end that we could look at. Yeah, it's just tough to play like Jacobs and guys like Deshaun Jackson and Renfro here on the Raiders. I just don't feel like the upside's there. But I guess maybe if I'm hunting on a cheap tight end, maybe I look at like a guy like Moreau and Thomas here in this game.
Yeah, Moreau for sure. 2,700 on DraftKings is a great price. I want to check Renfro because without Waller, I mean, that's going to be even more targets. And they really count on this guy. He's more valuable in a PPR format. I mean, he does pretty well around the goal line, but 5,800 on DraftKings. So don't hate that price point on Hunter Renfro here either. And I love the Gibson call. Not only more carries, more involvement in the passing game, which is what we've been waiting on. This guy was a college wide receiver, but they continue to run J.D. McKissick out there. So if he's going to get the majority of the work on the ground, we know Patterson will probably work in some there behind him. But if he's going to get the passing game work as well, that does raise the ceiling. And he looked great last week. So he is certainly one of the premier running backs this week. All right, let's go to Jags and Rams up next here. Any bets in that last one, Scott? We kind of skip by it before we move on. It's another under-lean for me here. I'm going to stay away from that spread, but any quick bets on that Raiders Washington game?
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are getting 71% of the money at -2.5, and over has gone up from 48 to 49. I think I tend to agree with you. I mean, the Vegas is terrible against the run. If Gibson can get rolling, I think Washington, I mean, they're on a winning streak. I think they need to keep fighting for that division, as terrible as it's been over there. So I think I would go against the public here and side with the Redskins.
All right, Jags and Rams up next. We spoke a little bit about this one yesterday in some of the early looks. I figured this one's going to land closer to 14 by kickoff right now, seeing 12.5s and 13s in the majority of the market here. So I just think it's a great bounce back spot here for the Rams. And we got to keep an eye on Darrell Henderson dealing with an injury. Is he able to be back in that lineup? If not, Sony Michel sets up very nicely as a value running back. I think the passing game certainly in play here. Stafford is due to bounce back and have a big game. And is it working Odell Beckham in? I think that's part of the issue here. The loss of Robert Woods cannot be understated here. And Cooper Kupp still been good. We just haven't seen what we saw the first 5-6 weeks of the season. So I like the bounce back potential here. As far as Jacksonville goes, you lose Dan Arnold, who's been a nice streaming tight end. James Robinson tends to find the end zone every week, but the ceiling pretty capped here. So tough to get too excited about anything on the Jags side of the ball here, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have just they felt the pain as a Stafford at quarterback as we felt for years here. Stafford threw a pick six in his last 3 weeks. I think I read somewhere that hasn't happened in the NFL in like 8 or 9 years or something like that. So that's the spot that has put them in the issue they're in. That offense has just been terrible. But you're right, this is a total get right spot here for the Rams. I think they're going to do everything they can to get themselves going here. The Rams are now 2 games behind the Cardinals, so they're going to have to get moving here if they want to try to win that division. But yeah, definitely like the spot here for Stafford and the boys. I think, Chris, you might see a spot here where I think he's going to go back to Cooper Kupp. I think it's going to be a spot where Cooper Kupp is going to have one of these breakout games that we haven't seen in a month or so, because we saw when they were rolling, you knew who he was throwing it to, and that was this boy Kupp there. So I think Cooper Kupp is definitely interesting this week too.
Yeah, and he's, like I said, he's still been great. I mean, we're talking 27, 20, 26, 18 DraftKings points over the last month. The targets have been there 10, 13, 13, and 9. We're not getting the 30, the 35s, the 40s that we were earlier. That's how good he was, where he's getting 20. You're kind of like, you're left holding the bag at 9,000 on DraftKings. So I think you're right, though. This could be a spot to go back to them, especially with some of the other value there. Maybe he's a guy you can pay up for, be a little bit different. If some of these running backs are going to be popular, paying up for the higher end receivers can be a way to differentiate. So betting wise, I still lean the Rams here. If I can get it under 14, I just think they roll. I know Jacksonville has competed in a lot of games, surprised us in a lot of spots, but it just feels like this Rams team is ready to explode. I think they do it here on the Jaguars. So any thoughts here on this number or this total?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here on the Rams, just rolling them over here. I think, all this talk about Urban Meyer and going to all these different places, and now he's heading out here to California, and we'll see. But I just think there's just always too many distractions here with Urban Meyer. I got to believe that these Jaguar players are just tired of it. I mean, if it isn't him doing something himself, I mean, he's going to be in the news for every one of these college jobs as long as he's in that spot. So I just think that some of these players probably getting tired of it.
All right, let's move on. Next game, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, another divisional game here in the AFC Center, the AFC North. I want to call it the AFC Central, showing my age here, but Pittsburgh struggling, stumbling. There's a lot of words you could use here for this team. So another tough game here. We saw them get rolled by Cincinnati. Baltimore was a struggle last week. They got the W, but it was ugly. Lamar Jackson continues to throw interceptions in that game. So what gives here, Scott? We're up to Baltimore -4. in most places. Heavy support by the public here on this Ravens squad. Are you with the public? Is this a spot we can get back on Pittsburgh to cover these 4 points or maybe win this game?
No, I think Lamar Jackson and the boys here are going to roll. I mean, it's kind of hard to bet on the team that tied the Lions, for God's sakes. But either way, 62% of the money is coming in on Baltimore so far. I mean, Baltimore's, they've been 8-2 in their last 10 games. I just don't see a reason why they just don't win this game by more than a touchdown. So I think I would tend to roll with Baltimore here as far as a bet.
All right, let's go to our last game to finish it out. San Francisco and Seattle. This one, San Francisco sitting about -3.5 for the most part. Yeah, right across the board, 3.5. So you can find some evens on DraftKings, at looks like Caesars. So maybe this one goes down to 3. So Seattle getting some support in the spot here. We saw it bounce up, coming back down. So one of those games you're getting even betting on both sides here. So, Scott, this Seattle team, it's really hard to be optimistic about right now. We saw them struggle once again. Russell Wilson looks out of sync. Had a few good throws to Tyler Lockett in the first half, but you mentioned DK Metcalf in our KMA segment. The running game has been non-existent ever since Chris Carson left that lineup. So this just feels a little bit too low here. And this one, I like backing the Niners. I think they go in. They're playing some good ball. They're getting healthy. I mean, the loss of Deebo Samuel, obviously huge. That's going to mean good things for Kittle, for Brandon Ayuk, and even for Elijah Mitchell, not having to worry about Deebo taking some of those carries and end-arounds in the backfield. But I just think San Francisco, the much better team here on both sides of the ball. I don't mind getting this one. If I can get it at 3, especially at even odds, I'm backing the Niners here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, we just saw how bad these Seahawks were. I was just making fun of DK Metcalf. So, yeah, they just been absolutely awful. I think they're in a spot here where they've given up here. I think that marriage there between Wilson and Pete Carroll may be coming to an end soon. But I think that the 49ers, I mean, they can keep turning their season around. They're up to 6-5 now. They're in a pretty good spot to get a wild card. The only problem is with Deebo Samuel being out, I think that could throw a little bit of a wrench in their offense. But man, Elijah Mitchell's been really good, as we said, and then they're going to get Kittle back. So as he's been coming back here from his injury. So yeah, I think San Francisco, we're just going to see one of these typical slow type games where you're going to see San Francisco just pound the ball with Mitchell. So I really like Mitchell. I think Wilson will get some run as well. But I like the under here in this game, Chris. I don't think Seattle's going to be able to do much offensively.
All right, that will wrap up the initial look at the NFL slate. So we do this every single Wednesday, so a fun exercise. So if you guys have thoughts on it, anything else you'd like to see, we're always available at Woodward Bets on Twitter. He's at G_Rising. I'm at BeerMakersFan. Please don't be afraid to reach out with any feedback, good, bad, or ugly. We are here for you guys, so we want to know what you guys want to hear. Again, tomorrow we'll cover Thursday Night Football, top to bottom. We'll continue to update injuries in the NFL. Take a look at the NBA as well. Friday, we'll be doing our sit-start questions. So if you have anything you're wondering about this week, you're dealing with buys, please reach out, send us a message. We'll cover that on Friday's show. Any DFS questions, betting questions, and of course, the premiere of Beers with Beer. We will be drinking some craft beer on the show. So if you're a beer lover, come and join us. We'll be talking about some beers that I'm not going to pull the obscure ones out yet. We'll get to those, some of the stuff in the cellar. So, Scott, you may not know, it's not only a fridge outside. There's an entire section of beer in my basement just sitting. We're talking some of the bigger bourbon barrel beers, things like that. So as it gets colder, those are the kind of beers you want to break out. But we'll ease you in slowly here. But we will be talking about some of the local brews here and some of the local breweries here in the local Metro Detroit area. So again, if you're a brewer, you're an employee, or you're just an enthusiast of certain breweries, hit us up. Let us know if you want to be a part of this. Beers with Beer every Friday. We'll be starting this Friday. Looking forward to that. But before we get out of here for today, Scott, best bet time, baby. Let's give the people some winners in the NBA. You got college hoops, a lot of choices here tonight. Hand some people some winners, some money. What are we doing here on Wednesday night in the betting market?
Chris, I have 3 bets, and all of them I've been looking at some college basketball, so I'm gonna stick with our
All right.
boys in the Big Ten playing in the ACC Challenge. So I have 3 bets. So I'm gonna go with your boys, the Wisconsin Badgers, giving Georgia Tech 3.5. I like Wisconsin here in this spot. I just think all these Big Ten teams are way better than these ACC teams. So I'm going to roll with a butt whooping tonight across the board with the Big Ten. So I'm also going to roll with Michigan, giving 2.5 to North Carolina. And then I'm going to roll with Penn State tonight, Chris, -3 against Miami. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Penn State. All 3 butt whoopings tonight for the Big Ten in that ACC Challenge.
I like it. Let's roll Big Ten, baby. I'm going to go to NBA. I'm also going to give you 3. So we're putting 6 best bets on the board. So hopefully we're talking 4, 2, 5, and 1, or even better, 6-0 tomorrow when we're doing the show. I'm going to stick to the NBA here tonight. Now, Scott, normally I love the totals. You know that. But nothing really jumped off the page in the total market. So I got 3 spread winners for you here. I'm going to go first off with the Washington Wizards, -4 here at home against Minnesota. Washington I've been playing some very good basketball, a team we've talked about before. The Timberwolves, kind of surprising start, but I think Washington handles business here at home tonight. This one feels a little bit too low, so I'm going to back Washington -4. Next game, I'm going to give you an underdog here. I like Atlanta catching a point and a half at some spots, so we'll call it +1 here in the best bet segment at Indiana. Look, I just think Trae Young is a superstar, a generational type talent that can carry this team. We saw him do it last season. I think even with the slow start here, they are the premier team here in this matchup. Indiana, some good names, some great players on that team. They just have not put it together yet. So if I can catch Atlanta catching a point, even better on the money line, I want to go that route. And lastly, another underdog here. I'm going with the Houston Rockets catching 2.5 at Oklahoma City. And this one, Scott, we're seeing a bunch of bets on Oklahoma City, almost 70% here in this spot. 2 very bad teams, but a lot of money coming in on the Houston Rockets. I want to ride with the money here. Kevin Porter Jr. playing extremely well, playing with some confidence. I think they win this game outright. So money line is fine, but I'm going to go with Houston plus the 2.5. So again, Washington -4, the Atlanta Hawks +1 or the money line. Same thing with the Rockets, but we'll take the 3.5. There in Oklahoma City. So 6 best bets in college basketball and the NBA. Thank you so much for joining us. Scott, final thoughts for the people here on Wednesday night. What do you got?
No, I'm excited. Some good basketball tonight. I love watching this ACC Big Ten Challenge. It's been going on for quite some time. The #1 Dukies, the Big Ten beat last night. So, hey, I think it's going to continue. And like you said, maybe we'll go 6-0 tomorrow and get us some lunch money.
There we go. Nothing better than the lunch money. So thank you again for tuning in. Again, you guys got any feedback, questions, hit us up at Woodward Bets. Get your questions in for Friday for Sit Start questions. And, of course, Beers with Beer premiering on Friday. Make sure you guys are tuning in for that. For Scott, for our boy Spencer behind the glass, I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your bets tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.